Well, hello folks, it's Saturday, October 4th, 2025. It is the 6th day of the fast, and we're in the middle of it. It's 7:23 a.m. in the morning, and when I got up I was really out of it. I just didn't have any energy. I didn't feel real good. I got up real early too. I got up about 4:30 this morning. Got up. What got me up was a leg cramp in my right leg. And I laid there and I laid there and I laid there. The knucklehead was behind my leg, and I was just trying to just not disturb her, And I finally said, you know what, I got to get up. And then when I got up, I had to do number 2, and it wasn't much. And I got in here. I'm a Formula One fan, Formula One racing fan. And they just did their final practice. Qualifying's at I think 9 o'clock this morning. Oh, we'll see. But anyway, so I was watching that, and I got a cup of coffee and I drank that, and man, that worked me again. I had to go in and use the restroom again. And I just shot a video about furnace filters because I was surprised at myself that I let that go 2 more months than I had written on a thing. But this is why I write everything down. This is the thing about if you write it down, you don't have to remember it. Maybe it's lazy, but the thing is, my memory has been sort of, if I get wrapped up in doing something and then I go to do something else and then I come back to that, I'll miss something in the first thing. So I try to do one thing at a time, But I'm feeling pretty good now. I take liquid iodine every morning, and it's been kind of a godsend. Right here on my neck, you can see these leaders on my neck. Well, your thyroid's right here, and I had gone through about 2 years of my neck hurting, That's kind of, what the hell is that? And then what scared me was that this all swole up, and I found out that potentially lack of iodine in the diet is an issue. And I looked at ways to take iodine. I don't know how I ran into this liquid iodine, but I get coatage iodine from GNC. But when you get iodine, liquid iodine, you also got to get potassium. Now the iodine is so important to your body and so basic that you can overdose yourself on that and you're not going to kill yourself, which was good because the first time I took the liquid iodine, I overdosed myself. I took about 81 times what you're supposed to take for the day. It's I don't remember who you are, but the guy posted back at me and said, Phil, you should look at the directions on that because I think it's telling you to take 1 drop, not 1 dropper full. And when I started, I took 4 dropper full. I took 2 of them at night and 2 in the afternoon, and I didn't have any bad effect. Now the potassium you got to be very careful with. You only take 1 pill a day or 1 pill every 2 days because that can build up and that can damage your insides. And we're not about getting hurt here. I'm not about getting injured. This whole channel is about growing old, not using a walker, not bent over, and especially not going to a doctor's office. I really don't want to go to a doctor's office because you got to say it the way it is. The American medical system is owned by the pharmaceutical companies. The American doctors and the way they treat people is owned by the American pharmaceutical companies. It is entirely based on selling drugs, getting you addicted to drugs. They don't give a shit whether they kill you or not. So you got to look at what you're eating. That's the number one thing that's killing us too. It's like a double whammy here because the fast food industry makes, I wouldn't even call it food. They take stuff that is waste they flavor it, and they know how to flavor stuff so you get addicted to it. That's what these sauces that they sell now. That's why when you eat these sauces, you go, wow, this sauce is great. Well, the sauce is developed in a lab, and they have people who test it. And when it lights up signals in your brain, whatever, they know these chemicals that light up signals in your brain, so you come back to that place. It's like when you look at Chick-fil-A, and I see, every day I see lines around Chick-fil-A. And I was like, why are people so addicted to that? And then there's a guy that does nutritional food reviews, but he's kind of tainted because he's got his own supplements and things that he sells. But he does have good advice about ingredients. And he said that he went into Chick-fil-A. He used to do this thing where he'd go into fast food places and say, okay, well, we're going to go to McDonald's, and I'm going to show you the few things that I would buy. And he'd show you why you shouldn't buy these other things, you know? The same thing with Chick-fil-A. He did that too. And one time he went to Chick-fil-A and he says, look at this sauce. It's got MSG. It's loaded with MSG, you know? And he'd go online and get the ingredients list. So there's a reason why people are addicted to Chick-fil-A. Now, obviously, Chick-fil-A has had wonderful service. They've changed. Their corporate ownership has changed. So the original people who owned it, as far as I know, they don't control it anymore. And that's a shame, because we will see a degradation in the quality of their food products. You're actually seeing that all over the fast food industry, because there's a lot of pressure monetarily to make things as cheap as possible. And what it does, it means if we were already eating food that was second rate, and now we're eating really second rate food. And I really call you out, Wendy's, because when Dave Thomas owned you, you sold some of the best fast food in the fast food industry. When Dave Thomas was alive, he absolutely refused to sell cheaper potatoes, and especially he refused to sell cheaper grade beef. And after Dave Thomas died, you could see where the CEO and the upper management went right down the toilet in the quality of their beef. Now it's come up some, and they are still one of the best fast food places you can eat, but they're nowhere near Five Guys, you know. But then again, Five Guys, you're going to spend $25 for a burger and fries, but it's going to be damn good. But anyway, we're heading on to the fast. I'm surprised I'm making this video. As you can see, I'm not yawning as much as I was in the last videos. I did pick up this old shirt that I had in the thing. This is my wife's glasses, you know, and they're higher magnification than I wear. I needed these because I pulled out some heaters because it got cold last night. And I just got to the point I was like, you know what? It's getting down to 40 degrees. Probably today or tomorrow I have these wood panels I put over the vents in my foundation, because it's a one-story house, old one-story house, and it has foundation vents that vent out moisture so your floor doesn't ruin and you don't get mold and all this kind of crap. But in my situation with no heat pump or no heater in this house, I'm always concerned about breaking pipes. So I put wood panels around those vents as it heads into where we go below freezing at night, and then we get into freezing during the winter. And it really has helped. And it helps inside the house too. Plus I cover all my window air conditioners with this thick black plastic bags, and I tape that on. Let me back this up a little bit. Knucklehead wants to get into my lap here, and you get to see. I don't know if she'll. What are you doing, Poopy? What are you doing, Poopy? Come here, little boo boo. This little boo boo. Yes, she is. What are you doing, boo boo? Come on. Yeah, she wants to get in my lap. She just loves to be spoiled. And I found out that I cannot feed her. Just a minute. This is my green tea, black tea. Oh man, I feel so much better than I did just an hour ago. And, I mean, part of that was doing the number 2. Part of that was I haven't drinking a water today. I did drink the coffee, and anyway, but I'm feeling better. So I'm kind of digging it. Especially when it's been 6 days and you ain't ate. I'm kind of wondering if tomorrow I'm going to have that. There was a number 2 I had on the 7th day. I don't know if it was the last fast or the other fast. That sucker came out, it was like a rock. But it's small, but it was like a rock. I was like, God darn, this was stuck up inside my body? What the hell? So anyway, what you doing, boo-boo? This is Knucklehead. Yeah, this little booger. Yes, it is. Look at Booger. She's so spook rotten. This is the spook rotten booger. That's what I'm going to call this. October Fast Day 6 with Booger. Yeah, she's spook rotten. I spoil her rotten. But I buy her the Applause food from PetSmart. It's expensive as shit. It's like $3 a can. And she likes the chicken with cheese. She likes some of the fish, which I was surprised about. What she really likes is I got some sliced turkey lunch meat from the deli at Giant. And I was surprised because I had so much of it because it was on sale. It was like half price. It was like, I looked at it, oh crap, this is half price. So I grabbed it and brought it home because I'm going to make some turkey sandwiches, And of course I didn't. And so I had this turkey left over, and I knew you can't hold this stuff but about 4 or 5 days, and then it goes bad. So I said, okay, well, I'll feed Knucklehead some. And she ate the hell out of that turkey lunch meat. I mean, she loved it. She ate it, and then she came back to me, begging me, going, and I was like, okay, all right, okay. But I only feed her. I feed her on. I just bought her some new plates from Goodwill, because Goodwill has. If you go into Goodwill, sometimes their dish selection, you'd be amazed what people turn into Goodwill to sell. To support Goodwill. And the thing is, I get it. It's like I talk to my boss all the time, and he's a wonderful man, has a wonderful wife. His wife, she just set up like 16 gift baskets for the girls that work at the place we're at. And it was because it was Breast Awareness Month or something like that. She just got it in her head. She said to her husband, take these packs to the girls, because we have a lot of Hispanic girls that work in the warehouse where I'm at. And I want to tell you something. Those girls work their ass off. They really do. The Hispanic guys work their ass off. The American guys that are in the office, they work their ass off. Everybody where I'm working at works their ass off. And they care about what they're doing, and they do a great job. And it's really awesome to work in the environment that I'm in right now. And I really thank my boss, because we're not the same company. We're actually renting out an office and a small amount of warehouse space from them. And we have another warehouse that has our long-term storage that they own that warehouse too. We rent the floor space there, but just a small amount. So hopefully it's cheaper than having an entire warehouse, which in the reality of the situation that we were in before, I don't think we saved a whole lot of money, but that's really not true either, because we shed 2 employees. And I think that the total cost is down. And that's good, because you want to keep your costs down. Anyway, his wife made like 14 breast cancer awareness gift packages. And she put food in it and all kinds of stuff. I mean, he's just very blessed. And they're both very sick people, physically. Mentally, they're the most beautiful people, some of the most beautiful people I've ever known. But spiritually. But she has multiple sclerosis, and it's not bad right now, but it's getting slightly worse every year. She has flare-ups sometimes. She can't feel her legs. She falls down sometimes. And he's got COPD from 50 years of chain smoking, probably 60 years of chain smoking. But man, they're like forces in nature. Here we go. They're like forces in nature. They're wonderful people. And I really appreciate it. I don't know how I got on that subject. Must be the fact that I'm half looped out of my mind right now, but I do feel better. And Knucklehead does this right here. She got in the habit of doing this. As soon as she goes and eats, she wants to eat. I'm going to have to, I think I'm going to go down to Giant and get her some daggone turkey, sliced turkey. And I've been kind of trying to stay away from the food stores because I'm trying to float about what I'm going to eat tomorrow night. Well, tomorrow at 6. And I've got like 6 meals in there, 6 frozen meals that Giant had on sale. I think they were $2 each. And they're not just, I think they're Michelina meals. And they're really, I've had them before, they're delicious. Of course, it's a little bowl like this, and what you do is you warm it up, and then you take what's in the top of the bowl, you pour it into the sauce underneath the bowl, you mix it up, and then you eat it. But if you pair that with 2 slices of bread with butter, that can get you through a couple hours, you know? That's really good. And it was only $2, you know? So I got 6 of those meals in there. I got some beef and bean burritos in there too. I might do something with them, I don't know. And I got some old beef fried rice in there too. I might do something. I don't know what I'm going to do, but anyway. But we're doing okay. And I feel, like I said, when I started this video, I feel so much better now than I did when I woke up. But the good thing is, like I said, and like Excellent recommended, because I started the fast on Sunday, and I started at 6, which is, you want to start the fast at a point in the day that when you end the fast, you can eat and then go to sleep. You know, I was banging on about that 12 midnight, you know, 12 midnight. I start at 12 midnight. Start 12 midnight. Well, if you do that, that means you're eating at 12 midnight. It takes about a half hour to eat. It takes, if I post the video, hell, I don't get to sleep till 3 in the morning. I get up at 5 and go to work. So, on top of coming off the fast and eating and being full of food, you're exhausted. And so, that just wasn't a good formula. So, I brought it back to 9 the last 2 times, and I brought it back to 6 the last time. No, I brought it back to 6 this time. This is the first time I've gone at 6 on Sunday. And that's how we're going to do this. I'll take the first day and put it in the week. But I'll start it on Sunday at 6 and end it on Sunday at 6. And I don't think, honestly, I mean, I like the 7-day fast for myself, because what I look at this fast as is a way to gain days of life. Honestly, what I'm doing with this fast is I'm gaining days at the end of my life. If you look at, this is the thing about people who smoke, and this was one of the formula ways that they try to get us to stop smoking. Same thing with drinking. They say for every cigarette you smoke, you take, 5 minutes, 10 minutes off your life, And what I heard smokers say was, I'm taking off the bad days of my life, I'm taking off the shitty days where I'm stuck in a hospital bed getting pumped full of medicine, so fuck that, I don't care, I'm going to have a smoke. And I will tell you this about smokers. This is something they never ever say about smoking. Now, I'm not a fan of smoking. My mom died of cancer, lung cancer. She had lung cancer. She was a wonderful woman, wonderful wife to my dad, wonderful mother to us. One of the hardest working women in the entire planet. I'm just telling you, an honorable and decent. And my dad was the same way too. I'm very lucky to have had the parents I had. Because, and they were both, my mom was a hardcore Christian. My dad wasn't, but my mom was a hardcore Christian without the, we have to go to church every day kind of thing. Now, she would go to church, but if my dad said, no, I don't want to go, she would say, okay. She wasn't one of these people that got in your face and said, the devil's going to get you, blah, blah, blah. But she was a hardcore Christian. She brought God into her life every day. Anyway, she smoked all the days of her life. One of the reasons I had health problems, I believe, is that she smoked during her pregnancy with me. I was the last child she had. I was born 6 or 7 years after my youngest brother. I have 3 older brothers, and they were born together, and then like 6 years later they had me. And I think what happened with me was my dad had a vasectomy at the end of I think in the middle of 1959. My dad had a vasectomy, so he thought he couldn't get my mom pregnant anymore. Well, what they don't tell you about a vasectomy is that you can get your wife pregnant. I've heard up to a year. I think it's 9 months. But anyway, my mom got pregnant, and he could not believe she was pregnant. And my mom could not believe she was pregnant. She almost, being a Christian, and being that she was 100% sure she was never going to have another child, to have me come along to her was a miracle. But she was steady smoking. Nobody ever said anything that smoking was bad for pregnant women. And so I was born pretty sickly. And I was sickly for about 5 years. And it was touch and go. The dynamic I put into our family pretty much destroyed it. And it was just because I showed up. And it's not my fault. I mean, this is a thing where God decides, okay, you're going to be born. You're going to be, and I'm going to born you into this family. Now, my parents loved me, but they suffered because they had me. Because my 3 brothers, that was a set family already. That was ready to go. My dad was ready to go. He was ready to take my 3 brothers and go fishing and hunting and all this kind of stuff. And then here comes this, the hell is this, you know? But, so all through my life, I was the favorite child to my mom. And I was pretty much fucking hated by my dad. Not hated as in hated. I'm just, the circumstances, he's like, you've got to be kidding me, you know? And my brothers, they were just trying to maintain their social value in the family. Because my oldest brother was always the most respected brother. My middle brother was, he was respected, but he was sort of lost. He was jealous of my older brother. And my brother next to me was lost. Because when I came along, he became devalued. And it wasn't fair. You know, it wasn't fair. But there's not much you can do about that. I couldn't do about anything about me being born like that. I would recommend to families, if you do have babies, have all your babies in a row, or not more than 2 years apart or something like that, and then stop having babies. Don't go 6 years and have another kid, you know. Anyway, I was a spoiled brat, and I'll say it, I treated my mother like shit because I was a spoiled, mentally ill brat. And I wish my mother had got with my dad and told all 4 of us to help her in the house. But my mom was in a time crunch, and she didn't have time for that shit, so she did everything. She did the cooking, she did the cleaning, she did the laundry, she did everything. And she worked as a head nurse at a hospital for like 40 hours or 30 hours a week to bring the family money to my dad and to her so they could gain a retirement. And in all this, she was smoking. But the point I wanted to say about smoking was, I've never seen a smoker who was a mass murderer. You know, there's something about smoking that gives you a habit that helps you relax. Now, I could be wrong about that. Obviously, somebody will go out there, oh, what's this mass murderer? But as a general rule, people who smoke and they take that 5 minutes to go smoke, they're usually chiller than the people who don't smoke. So there's a good point of smoking right there. But anyway, getting back to the whole subject of extending your life, there is a physical cost to smoking. Now, there are oddities of human beings who live to 90 years old and they smoke every day. And I think that has to do with stress. Stress will kill you. You want to know the fastest way to die at 42 years of age? I'll tell you. Become a stockbroker on the New York Stock Exchange. It is astonishing how those people die at young ages. They have heart attacks and they die. They have strokes and they die. And what it is, it's the daily stress of doing stock quotes and being responsible for huge amounts of money. And really, if you want to get down to it, stress, if you are, I'm going to say this, people are going to be pissed who are atheists, but if you have a belief system and if you have a neighborhood or a family in a neighborhood that you socialize with, you tend to live a lot longer. Because if you have a belief system, you have somewhere to go to put your stress. For me, I believe in God. I always have, thanks to my mom, and that is a gift that just keeps on giving every day to me, you know. And I'm not the best Christian. I'm not going to go out here and you know, judge people, because I have to live it. And here's the thing: if you live your faith, people will see it and they will respect it. I have a guy that was named Saban, who was, I think he was from Estonia or from Bosnia, or he was from one of those Eastern European nations. He was just a skinny guy. He was about 5'10", weighed about 100 and maybe 40 pounds. But he was one of the most wonderful human beings I ever worked with. I mean, his attitude was amazing. And he wasn't overly happy-go-lucky, but he was just a decent and fair and wonderful human being who came in every day. He did his job. He always stood up for what was right. Always. The guy was just, and he did his job. He wasn't boisterous. He was just, Saban was one of the most wonderful people I ever knew in my life. And I was surprised he died, and this, I still say this had something to do with the jab. They pretty much ran him out of the company I worked for before. They really treated him badly. He said, you know what, screw this, I'll go. He didn't say screw this, he never cussed. But he said, no thank you, I'll go get another job. And he got a job working for a security company. And we got the call from my other friends who, at the time, I wasn't working for the company I worked for before. They said, hey, Saban's passed away. I said, no way. The guy was the most healthiest person on the planet. He really was. That guy didn't have an ounce of fat on him. And he wasn't unhealthy. I mean, his skin tone was great, and his attitude was great. His eyes were clear. I mean, you can pick up when somebody's unhealthy. He was just a wonderful human being. But he was mowing his grass one day, and he fell out in his yard, and he had a heart attack and died. I don't know if it was a heart attack or a stroke. I suspect it was a stroke. But we found out that he was Muslim. And he never pronounced his faith at our job site. He never had anything on his desk. He was very modest and humble and wonderful. And that is the greatest statement of Islam right there. To live a life of peace and honesty and honor. Honor your God and honor your family. And it's okay, Pooh. You're all right. You're all right. And we miss Saban. And I miss... There's this other guy named Bernardo. Filipino guy. About 5 foot 4 inches of nothing but work power. And this guy smoked every day of his life. He chain smoked. And on the weekends, him and his relatives, his Filipino relatives, they would drink and fight. And he would come in with bruises on his eyes, black eyes. And he'd come in so burnt out and so hungover that go, how do you keep going? And he would get on my crew, and I'd be a supervisor, right? And it would be him and some other guys, and I'd say, okay, y'all want to go over to a fast food place, get you something. And they'd go in and get their biscuit. They'd bring it back to the vehicle, and we'd leave and get something to eat. You know, sometimes they get those. One of their favorite things was the ramen noodles that you can get. They'd buy the ramen noodle at the place. They put the hot, and they would be eating this ramen noodle while we'd bounce it down the road, you know. But that guy, if he got that biscuit or if he got that ramen noodle and he'd smoke some cigarettes, that was the hardest working little bastard you ever saw in your life. And he was pretty damn cool too. And pretty basic and honest, just a wonderful guy. And he got into some situations with his drinking. He got a DWI. And at the time, people don't understand what people from other countries go through when they come to America. How expensive it is, how they've got to band together to live together in apartments, to be able to afford the places where you get your jobs. And he had a lot of things happen, and he got under a lot of pressure. And Bernardo passed away. I'm pretty sure he had a stroke. And that was, man, he lived a hard lifestyle. But he was about, I want to say he was probably about 45, 50 when he passed away. But what a magnificently decent human being he was. And we miss him, you know. I guess this is the video where I talk about the people that I work with who passed on, and I honor them because every one of these people gave me something too when I worked for them. I mean, they gave me the peace of knowing that I had somebody on the job that had my back, that cared about me as much as I cared about them, and we could get through our workday together. And that's priceless. If you work at a job where you got people like that, that's priceless. I mean, even if you work at these places like Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot or anywhere you work, if you got one work buddy or two work buddies, or if you're lucky enough to work at a place that fosters that environment, which that company I'm talking about, the guy who ran it initially for about 15, 16 years, that's all he did. He never gave his workers crap. He always backed up the workers. And we worked some damn overtime, dude. Woo! We made some money. But we worked our asses off. We had 80-hour work weeks every week. It was crazy. And wonderful. And beautiful. Dennis, thank you, sir. That was my boss's name, Dennis. I can't say his last name, but thank you, sir. But anyway, so I'll tell you about two other guys. One guy's name's Carlos and one guy's name's Edgar. Edgar was Carlos's son. And Edgar had a brilliant mind, just a brilliant mind. And there was this supervisor at work who's my good friend. I've been around him for 30 years, but he's a bit of an asshole. You know who you are. You know you're an asshole. But Edgar would get under his skin with just a comment. And man, he would go off. And I was looking at him going, holy crap, you gotta... Don't let him get to you like that, man. And he knew exactly the right thing to say. And Edgar was a breath of fresh air on the job. He was smart. He was hardworking. And Carlos was his dad. And Carlos was a very smart man. Unfortunately, Carlos was set into a certain clique into our job where he was not allowed to expand. And it really bugged him. And when Edgar came in, Edgar started teaching Carlos more and more things, you know. And this other person didn't like that, so he split them apart. So Edgar went on his way away. He left the job. Carlos kept working there. And we found out Edgar got a cancer in his chest. And the cancer took him away from here. I could not believe that. I said, man, you have got to be kidding me. And I'm pretty sure that killed Carlos, because it was only like 2.5 years after that Carlos himself, he had already left the company. I think he left the company before he died. And he passed away. But they were two wonderful people, Carlos and Edgar. And every day working with them was an adventure. I watched Carlos one day. God bless you, Carlos, up in heaven. I don't know what was going on that day in his head, but we had these big we call them case goods. It's when a desk comes in and they have the top, the back panel, and the pedestal attached. So you have this piece here, then you have a corner unit, then you have this piece here. And they're big and heavy. You tip this piece up on a dolly, you tip this piece up on a dolly, you tip this piece up on a dolly. You roll them where you want to go, you set them in place, and you go, right? Well, we didn't have time to unpack this stuff when we got it up into this office. It's in Washington, D.C. I think it was at a company called the Carlyle Group. Anyway, I was talking to Carlos. He was unboxing this corner station. And he took the knife. Now, each one of these units cost about $3,000 minimum. Maybe $4,000. The corner unit probably cost $5,000. And really nice offices, you know. And Carlos takes the box knife. He's talking to me. He takes the box knife, he puts it on the corner, and he goes directly across from one corner to the other diagonally at a 45-degree angle across the box. I'm talking to him. I looked at that, and I'm thinking to myself, he didn't just fucking do that, did he? And he took another one, he went right across the top. Oh, she gonna get down. And he did like that 4 times. I said, Carlos, what the fuck are you doing? And he looked down, he went, oh my God. And we opened a box. Oh my God, it looked like Freddy Krueger. He took his 5 fingers and went across that brand new $5,000 fucking piece of furniture. And I say, oh my God, Carlos, what were you thinking? He was in shock. He was completely caught off guard. I don't know what he was thinking. He just had a brain fart, you know? He actually left the job, took a taxi, and drove home. And he said some things. I said, Carlos, please don't do shit like that. I said, man, it's furniture. You made a mistake. It's no big deal. We'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. We'll call the boss. We'll tell him, say, look, you know, it was a mistake that happened. And, you know, my boss was so wonderful that it was never heard about again. They got another piece of furniture, ordered, brought it in. They said that there was a damage on the job. I don't think they ever explained what happened. But that's the kind of place I used to work at. And that was before the other two guys came and took it over. And they were sent there to pretty much close it down. And they did. But Carlos was funny as hell. He was funny as hell. I mean, we had a job where we had to use some black caulk, C-A-U-L-K, on a job. And he would walk around the job with his Spanish accent going, I love the black cock. He would say that shit, and I would bust out laughing. And Carlos was not gay. He had a wonderful family, but he would just do that. And he would look you right in the face when he said that. And I would laugh all fucking day. Oh my God. What a wonderful human being, man. And they're all gone. You know, all 4 of the people I just talked to you about were special and wonderful spirits from God, or Allah, if you prefer. And, you know, that's what, if you are stuck in a house and you're not getting out amongst the people, that's what you're missing. You know, that's one of the things about working that I like, is that I am forced to interact with people. I am forced to see people for how wonderful they are. And I love that. You know? That's why I say I'll probably never retire, you know. And that's why a lot of people who retire, they volunteer to go places and do wonderful things for other people, you know, because it gets them out amongst people. You don't get to listen. If you look at your phone, and this brings me to another part of this video that I want to talk about, is phone brain poisoning. These phones that we got, these right here, these are wonderful devices, but if you look in this phone for how life really is, you get brain poisoning. And, you know, it breaks my heart to see a beautiful woman on YouTube looking like this in her phone. Ain't no woman should ever post that. You should never post that shot. Okay, we get it. You're taking a picture of yourself. You're looking at yourself, okay? We get it. And it's important. It's important to look nice if you value that. Men are in a different situation. I was born in a much older generation that valued work and honor and capability over appearance. We didn't give a shit what you look like. We didn't give a shit what your race was. We didn't give a shit where you came from. If you were a decent person and you worked hard, come on, baby, let's go. Let's get something done, you know? And people who are like that, who work hard and are capable and decent and honest, they make wonderful neighbors. So it doesn't matter what color or race they are or what their religion is. It don't matter. You know, when you have decent, hard-working people that value what the money they make and the things they buy with that money, they tend to stay within their own realm and take care of their own people. They don't get into your business. They don't get into your property. They don't cause problems around you. So we have a real problem with phone sickness. in this world, and we need to really address that. I mean, now I use Waze. It's become crucial on my job to use Waze, the navigation, the GPS navigation car map. But I set that up before I start rolling, you know. And I also, there's a radio station called WMAL that I listen to, but I can't listen to it a whole lot. But I go on their app, well, not their app, I go on their website, which I access through Safari, the web browser on my iPhone, and I listen to them. But sometimes I got to turn them off because they get pounding on the same thing for a half an hour, and I'm like going, God darn it, guys, you said this 10 minutes ago, you said it 20 minutes ago, you said it a half hour ago. I'm sick of this shit. I'm not going to hate my Democrat brothers and sisters because I was a Democrat. And I won't get into why I stopped being a Democrat, but and I'm not a Republican either. I'm an independent. I'm an American, okay? So that's why I don't really post a bunch of political shit on this channel, because there's enough of it on YouTube. And it's all designed, it seems like it's all designed to cut us to pieces, to make us stop loving each other, you know? You know what? I got these pills here I got to take. These are my krill pills. God darn it. These are my krill pills. These are wonderful for protecting your heart from getting a heart attack. Knucklehead's getting over here in a plastic bag. There must be a hormone that plastic bags excrete that tastes like food or like sinew, like muscle sinew, because all my cats have wanted to gnaw on the plastic bags. Alright, so this is a B multivitamin right here. This is mushroom pills, and you want to get I'm not going to tell you what you want to get, but what I get is a mushroom pill that has 3 types of mushrooms in it. And you can get these from GNC, you can get them from the vitamin shop, and you can get them from Walmart. And I found those ones that I liked that got me started on mushrooms pills. And I was looking for potassium, and I saw them there. Oh shit, great! And I didn't see any potassium, right? So I pulled out, I said, oh, the mushroom pills. So I pulled the mushroom pills out. I'll be damned, there was a potassium right in the middle of the mushroom pills. Like, oh shit, you gotta be kidding me. You know, I talk about God, and I say He always helps me out. And how can you not say that's a God thing? I hadn't seen those mushroom pills for a year. I was like, going, damn. Now I could go online and buy them, but I went for other mushroom pills, which were, some were more effective than others, but all of them helped me. They help. You know what the number one thing a mushroom pill does for you? It helps your guts. Something about the fungus in mushrooms, when it gets down into your intestines, it really helps inspire your intestines to do this, to move bowel, and to be healthier. It's just amazing. I couldn't believe it. So these are mushroom pills. So I went to the vitamin shop I was down in Virginia Beach, and for some reason something popped in my head to go to the vitamin shop. And I went to the vitamin shop, and they had a sale on mushroom pills from this brand, and I saw the 3 mushrooms. It's a multi-mushroom pill. I said, well, screw it. And they had a hell of a sale. I mean, it was like 50% off every bottle. I was like, oh shit. So I bought like 8 bottles. I think I've spent $120 on mushroom pills. And they're in glass bottles, which I love that, you know, because it shows that they care about the product. Let me get these in me. So I'm good on mushroom pills for a while. I got those other I forget the name brand. It's the brand they have of all their pills down there at Walmart. But I got those, and I got these other ones. So I got good on mushroom pills for a while. This is, I want to say, I think that's a calcium pill, believe it or not. Now, I think this is a potassium pill right here. I want to say it's either this one. I think it's this one. I think that's the potassium pill. Potassium is important for heart and for regulating blood pressure. You know what I didn't see? You know what? I guess I might already took it. I don't think I already took it. So, either one of these is, one is a potassium pill and one is a chromium picolinate pill. I use chromium picolinate because it regulates your blood sugar. Very important for regulating blood sugar, chromium is. And it's not, these are the base minerals that when a farmer does successive generations of crops, it sucks the nutrients out of the ground. That's why when you see farms that are in floodplains and they flood every, say, 3-4 years, it's wonderful because all those minerals come down the river and they go into the ground and they make the food that comes out of the ground so much more healthier for you. It's one of the reasons why America really nourished its people with the Mississippi River and all of the flooding that it did and all these other rivers that flood. This son of a bitch here, I got a spot in my throat. It's like a vacuum cleaner. Alright. One of them red pills got stuck in my throat. One of them krill pills got stuck in my throat one day because I was in a hurry. And I damn near choked to death. I was like, oh my God, dude, don't ever do that again. Alright, so I got some B vitamins. I got some, I take one pill, other than my, magnesium. One of these is a magnesium pill, and one is a multivitamin magnesium pill. I think it's that one right there. It's got magnesium, calcium, and zinc in it, I think. And when that goes away, I'll probably stop taking that. I'm not a big fan of multivitamins because if you think about it, how do they make a multivitamin? How can they know that if they've got 100 or 30 things in that pill that the dosages they're telling you is correct? Because they mix it up in a big vat and then they squash the pills out. Well, there's no way in hell they can tell you that every pill is getting the exact same dosage, So, anyway, let me, I'm going to take these. And I need to plug this in. All right. 312. Oh no. Good job, folks. Woo! Got lucky on that one. I'm taking our one last pill here. And that's it. That's what I take on my fast. I got krill pills. I've got mushroom pills. I've got one tiny chromium picolinate pill. I've got a magnesium pill. I've got a calcium pill. I've got a potassium pill. I got a B vitamin multivitamin pill. And that's pretty much it. And the liquid iodine. I use two different types of liquid iodine. I use the Cotage And I think the Vitamin Shop sells a different type of liquid iodine, and I only take like 2 of those. But the point is, oh, and I take a kelp pill. There's a company called Swanson online, and they sell vitamins. They sell all kinds of supplements and vitamins, and they're a pretty good company to buy from. I like buying from them. I got to get some more of those kelp pills. Kelp is a natural form of iodine, and the whole point is iodine is so important that you shouldn't just get it from one source. And honestly, obviously, all of this stuff I need to address this with food, you know, seafood, baked seafood, and grass-fed beef, and you know, healthy foods. So, but there we are. I didn't mean to make this video so long. I didn't really mean to remember my friends like that, but man, I'm making new friends every day. I'm, you know, at work. The people, the one thing, I worked in DC for about, I want to say 35 years. And my customers in DC were wonderful. But every one of my customers in DC was under pressure, enormous pressure. And it affected their attitudes. And you couldn't, I felt bad for them. You couldn't hold it against them, was what I was trying to say. You couldn't hold it against them because you knew. And one of the most wonderful things that came out of me working in DC was an appreciation for the women. It's usually women who do facilities at these companies. We did a lot of lawyer firms, we did a lot of lobbying firms, we did a lot of government agencies, but these women who are long-suffering facilities managers, and they get probably 300 emails a day, and every email is an emergency. And the times when I got on a job and I was able to fix something for them, or I was able to install something for them, and I dealt with the lady with respect. I never gave her any shit. When things were bad, I called my people. I found out what was going on. I never, ever, with my customers, gave them a time limit when I was there. When I showed up, I belonged to them. Okay? That's just the way it is. When you come up to a customer, they've been told you're coming. They've been told you're bringing something. And I would hope I have all the information, and of course a lot of times I didn't. And that was a source of stress for my customer. And I can't tell you the number of times I went on jobs in DC and my customers said to us, they said, you know what, your crew and you, I love working with you, but your office, I hate everybody in your office. Because they said they won't call me back. They won't respond to my emails. You know, I'm like, I will send an email, I will call them and tell them this, you know. And I did, over and over and over, and it never changed. It never changed. Because people are so used to dealing with computers and text and emails that they get afraid to call a customer and talk to them voice to voice, spirit to spirit, you know. I worked at a company, well, first off, I worked for my dad, and that was an interesting situation. I really honor my father because I was a fucking mess. When I was a teenager, I was a fucking mess. I was a mess. I unfortunately, well, I might as well just say it. I had a drug overdose on top of just being a spoiled little snotty brat. And that kind of changed my life. And I also had a accident where there used to be this stunt where you would take butane lighter fluid, you spray it in your mouth, blow it out. And I thought it was cool as shit. It's very dangerous. I didn't realize how dangerous it was. I filled my mouth with that, and I blew it out, and I blew a huge thing out, and then I went like this, and when I went like this, I breathed the flame back down to my lungs, and I burnt my lungs. I almost killed myself. And those two things changed my life. And I was a fucked up mess for a long time when I was a teenager. And my dad had me work with a guy on his crew, and the guy on the crew couldn't understand why I couldn't smoke pot with him every morning. I told him, I said, dude, if I do this, I'm dumber than I am now. I said, I can't do this. But the guy was like 6'8". He looked like one of them. They got these things on YouTube with long, thin arms, and but he was a handsome fella, and his name was Mick, and he was smart. And he was fast as shit at putting side up. But how could he not be? I mean, he could reach down here and he could reach up to a 10-foot wall and put siding on, and nail it, I'm working with this guy. He's got a brain like a freaking supercomputer. And he's smoking a spleef every morning before he starts his job. He used to drive around his big Dodge van. It was a wild vehicle to use in the siding business, but it was an extended body tradesman Dodge van. And he had these big alloy rims on it with big radials on. I remember BF Goodrich radials. It was cool looking as shit, man. I used to love riding that thing, And we'd put siding in it all the way up in the back. And oh my God. But I was always too slow for him, And I was the boss's son, He was sort of crippled that he had me working with him. But thank you, Mick. I appreciate that. And it gave me time to recover, And then I worked for another guy named Al. And Al was a magnificent human being. Al grew up in New York, and his dad was an alcoholic. His family situation was horrible. And he never complained. He never got mad. Except for one time. And I'll tell you why he got mad at me. But he used to go out in the woods and hunt and fish to feed himself. And he didn't do well in school at all. As a matter of fact, I think after 5th grade, he never went back to school. But Al was one of the most decent and wonderful and humble human beings I ever knew in my life. And Al will always be I love my dad, but Al was kind of like my second dad. And what Al taught me was, he said, Phil, first off, he said, when you marry someone, don't ever think you're going to change them. They are the way they are, that's the way they are. So don't marry somebody think you're going to change them. He was right. But what he said, now my dad was a go-getter. My biological father was a go-getter. And all he thought about was money, because he thought about money as paying bills, supporting his family. But he really was a go-getter for that. And he didn't understand you're stopping to enjoy the smell of roses, right? Well, Al was different. Every day Al wanted to do something that would bring him pleasure in his life, that would make the day worth living. So what Al had this girlfriend, Janet, that was stone crazy. I mean, she was really mentally ill. But Al was wonderful with her. He fought for her and took care of her. But I didn't notice, but Al could not read. Al could count. Al could read a tape measure, and Al could rudimentarily read, locations and stuff. But as a general rule, Al could not read. And we were looking for Kenilworth Avenue one time, up in D.C., Maryland. And he gave me used to have these ADT maps, I think. And they're fold-out maps. And he asked me to find Kenilworth Avenue and guide him up to it. And we drove up this Kenilworth Avenue, and it was the wrong Kenilworth Avenue. I didn't know there was two Kenilworth Avenues, and he was mad as shit. And I'd never seen him like that. I was like, God darn it! And we're on the clock, We're on the clock, That was the thing. My stupid little ass didn't understand it. But what I didn't understand was he couldn't read. And I gave him the map. I said, well, here, Al. Find Kenilworth Avenue. I didn't know there was two Kenilworth Avenues. And he took the map and threw it right out the window. I said, God darn, what the hell is that? And I went and I got the map and I brought it back. I said, well, let me look at it. And we got there. But he was never proud of the fact he couldn't read. And I never, ever gave him any shit about that, because I understood. And he was a magnificent human being. His thing was, every day, he would work hard, make a living, and he would go home to his girl, and first off, he would go, on the way home, he'd go by the store, he'd pick him up some fresh meat, some fresh food. He'd go home, he'd cook a wonderful meal for him and his girl, and he'd have a couple of beers, and he would enjoy his girlfriend, and he'd go to sleep, and that was a finished day. But his thing was, find something you enjoy, Enjoy that day, because you don't know how many days you got, And he never said that last part to me, but that was what his life example was, He was a magnificent human being. And I made a mistake of mentioning that I was talking to my dad one day at the kitchen table. And this was after I had stopped working for my dad. I was somewhere else. And he was talking about Al. He'd always been jealous of Al. And I don't understand that, I was like, why are you jealous of this guy? I mean, and I think he was jealous because I really did respect Al. I guess he felt more than I respected him. Which ain't hard to do when you're working with somebody just fucking decent. Listen, before I tell you the rest of the story, that if you get triggered about this, I'm sorry. Because, we're supposed to respect everybody equally, but this was one of the funniest moments in my life, and I want to share it to you. We were up in Fairfax City, and we were pulling into a 7-Eleven. Al was burnt. He was burnt, and he had this bright white. If you ever seen Kenny Rogers, he looked like Kenny Rogers, only way more fit. Young Kenny Rogers, only way more fit, He had this bright white hair out like this, and he had a mustache and a beard, and he looked kind of like General Custer, that kind of that. And he was burned. His eyes had the little rings around it. He had a cigarette in his mouth, and the cigarette was hanging down like this. There was smoke coming off of it. And we were riding in his truck. His truck was a Chevrolet Silverado 3/4 ton, 4-wheel drive. Fucking nice truck, man. And it wasn't all beautiful. It was a work truck, But it had a great big V8 motor in it. He's pulling into the parking lot of the 7-Eleven. And there's this guy, and unfortunately he's handicapped, and he's going into 7-Eleven like this, hunched down, and dragging one leg. And I looked at the guy. I looked over at Al, and I got to do this in profile. Let me see if do I got a pen or pencil? I got a pen right here. And he goes, let me get in the camera. I looked over at him, and he goes, straighten up. It didn't come out. He goes, now imagine this cigarette being here. He goes, straighten up, motherfucker. And I laughed for fucking 8 hours about that. Because it was such a perfect fucking comment. It meant nothing, but it meant everything. Because I looked at that guy, I went, oh my God, dude, that is so bad. We want everybody to be healthy. That's what this channel's about. But he said that shit, and I fucking died. Just a simple comment. Straighten up, motherfucker. It was so deadpan. It was so perfect, you know. And we were in this great big truck, blah 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 blah, pulled in the parking lot. Al, I miss you, buddy. I'm sure he's passed away by now. I lost contact with Al for years, for decades. But he's one of those spirits that God brought my way to teach me, you know. All these spirits I'm talking to you about are wonderful spirits who gave me something. You know, my mom and dad were awesome. And my dad, I mean, all these other people I talked to you about were awesome. So I want to tell you something that happened. I'm going to tell you, don't think bad about my dad. It's human nature to be driven to support your family. It's human nature. My dad was born in a poor family. You think it's one of these stories that people tell? My dad was born into a poor family. His father, my grandfather, and my grandmother was one of the prettiest women in the town that my grandfather grew up in. And they did the nasty, and they brought up 8 kids real quick, all in a line. And then the Depression happened. And my grandfather didn't know how he was going to feed his family, so he became a sharecropper. And they moved to a farm, and they sharecropped. Well, my dad was in the middle of that. And my grandmother wasn't the most healthiest person in the brain. And my dad ran away. I want to say I believe it was 15, but it might have been 16. And he lived on the streets in rural North Carolina for a year and a half, and somehow got himself into the military. Somehow he got into the military. He never told me what he went through, and I never asked. And he went to Korea. He fought in Korea. When he went to Korea, he had jet black hair. When he came back from Korea, he had bright white hair. So it tells you what that experience did to him. And he was a wonderful, hardworking, and honorable man who loved me in his own way every day. So when I tell you this next story, please don't hate my dad, because I understand the dynamics involved here. Anyway, I was talking to my dad at the kitchen table one day, and I mentioned to him, I said, you know, Al can't read. And I was hoping I would excite in him a sympathetic reaction, that he would stop shitting on my friend, you know, because Al was my good friend, you know. And he didn't do that. He said, oh. Well, somehow it got back to me. I think it was his new girlfriend talked to me, or somebody got back to me. And they said that my dad said that I told him that Al was stupid because he couldn't read. And that's not what I said. And that pissed me off. I didn't talk to my dad for 7 years. 7 years. said, you know what, you son of a bitch? Because I know how me and Al, we had a buddy relationship, man. We were tight, you know? We were tight. That broke my heart to hear that, man. But it's my misjudgment of a certain part of my dad's character. I was just trying to support my friend. And when my dad got really sick and we knew he was going to pass away probably in about 6 months. And we got together. And I got to see Al again. And I said to Al, he came out and he was happy to see me, and I was happy to see him. But I told him, I said, Al, I want to tell you something. I told him, I said, Al, I just want to thank you for being such a decent person with me, for being so understanding and for teaching me so many good things about life. Okay? You've really made a difference in my life. And he was not somebody to be emotional or expansive. I don't know if I said it. I might have said, I don't know if certain people said to you things that that I didn't say, but I can tell you right now, you're one of the most wonderful people that's ever been in my life. And I thank you for that, okay? And he got this look on his face. He was smoking. He had that cigarette in his mouth again. He's kind of like, oh, Phil, that's cool. Thank you, you know? And we talked, and his new girlfriend was a real smoking hottie little thing, man, named Patrice. And I was happy for him because his other girlfriend, Janet, she was a mess. She actually, I watched her. I was driving up Newington up I-95, and I didn't know it was them, but I watched her jump out the truck while he was doing 55 miles an hour. And I watched him try to reach over and grab her. I saw through the back window, and I didn't know it was them. I saw them way up the road. I just saw a big silver truck with a ladder rack on it, and I'm like, oh, that looks like Al's truck. And I watched the door come open, and I watched the door close, and I watched the door come in, and I saw an arm over here, and she tried to jump out the truck. She was mentally ill. She was messed up. And he didn't do drugs, and she didn't do drugs, but there was just something that some battle she was having. But Patrice was a different woman entirely. She was really something. And I was glad he had her in his life. But Al was a wonderful human being. And my dad, I didn't hold it against him after he was on his deathbed, and he wasn't taking care of, he never took care of his diabetes. And his thing was, my stepmother, who was, again, my stepmother was my dad's brother's wife. And after my mom died, he went down there and essentially broke up his marriage, his brother's marriage, and married her. Now my dad's brother's wife, Dottie, was one of the hardest working women I've ever seen in my life. She was a North Carolina Southern belle who had 8 kids herself, and I fully remember my dad and me showing up at their house at like 1:30 in the fucking morning, and Dottie was up doing laundry for her 8 kids and her husband. And Dottie was the most wonderful and ingratiating person, and one of the hardest working people I ever saw. So whatever the dynamic was that brought them together, I have a small little window to give you about how this went down. My mom was sick with cancer. She was giving her nurse friends knickknacks and stuff out of our attic at my dad's house. She was doing this because she wanted them to have it, and because those nurse friends were helping her get through her cancer by giving her medical care at our house. But they were her friends. And she sat me down one day and she said something to me. She says, "Philip, I need to tell you something. I'm very sick, and I'm not going to be here sometime in the future. And your dad will never survive alone. And if he finds someone to keep him company, I want you to accept her, okay?" And I said, "Okay, Mom." And at the time, every day we were praying, every day we were hoping, but the cigarettes just got her, man. They gave her cancer, and they took her lung out, and she didn't recover. We didn't know what the fuck was going on. She didn't recover too well. And one Saturday morning, I'll never forget it. As long as I live, I'll never forget it. My mother had an incision in her stomach here. Well, where the lung was. And a boil had growed up on that incision. Now, she's having her nurse friends come in and tend to her and stuff. I was surprised that they hadn't said something about what is this, or Lancet or something. But anyway, this boil one Saturday morning exploded, and about a pint of goo came out of her side, all over the bed, all over the floor, right in front of my dad. My dad was here when it happened. And I was walking down the hallway of our house, and I heard, oh my God, I can breathe now." That was my mom. My dad's reaction was to run past me and go right down the street to where the nurse friend lived and get her and bring her back. And that was the worst day of one of the worst days of my dad's lives, because of just what you had to see, you know. And this is what waits for people who smoke and who don't take care of their health. And it's not something I want to see anybody ever have to go through. Okay? My mom battled. She got brain cancer, and she talked to the surgeons, she talked to the nurses, and she said, "I do not want brain surgery." So they did radiation. The radiation went okay, but it permanently changed her. She was always been a bright person, mentally bright, spiritually bright, but it kind of dimmed her a little bit. She headed into the final days of her life, and when she went into the hospital, they had to put her on morphine, and the morphine just pretty much took her away from us. One day we would show up, and she would look at us like, "Who are you?" And the next day she'd look up and she'd go, "Hello." And I'd say, "Hi, Mom." And the day before she died, I looked down the bed at her and I said, "Mom, I'm going to pray for you every day." And I didn't say when you pass away, but that was the intimation. And she just looked at me kind of like she didn't know who I was. And she died the next day. But anything I ever had, any grudge or any bad feelings I had for my dad paid for a billion times over with the way my mom passed away. And when my stepmother came into the picture, I had a couple of brothers that were angling to get my dad's money. And by that time, my stepmother had kept my dad alive for 14 years. And I knew how Dottie was. I knew exactly how hard she worked. And I knew exactly how I watched. I'll tell you another thing about my dad. My dad was, he could be exceptionally hateful. Dottie was a large woman. And Dottie was cooking us breakfast and bringing my dad out his cheese biscuits, brought me out some food. And I enjoyed being around Dottie. I never had a chip on my back. And it was because of what my mom said, you know? And my dad said a comment about, because he had been exposed to Patrice, Al's new girlfriend, because she'd been coming over to the house and stuff. And Patrice she was a knockout, man. She was like 35-year-old MILF. She was really something. And she didn't have no kids or nothing. She was single. But man, she had a slender body, and she would wear these white pants, and then them white pants told a story, you know? Anyway, he compared Dottie to her. And in his mind, he didn't to me, but one day we were there, and he made a comment about Dottie's double axe handle ass. And Dottie was right there, right in the damn living room, right next to him, right in the kitchen, I mean, right in the dining room, right next to him. And I looked in her face, and she got tears in her eyes, and I just kind of went, God damn, man. This woman's keeping you alive. This woman's keeping you alive, bro. What are you doing? She's the only person that gives a fuck about you, man. But that was my dad. And he was a wonderful man. He was not a perfect man. And Dottie got all his money. And most of it. We got a little bit of check, you know. My dad, the one thing about my mom and my dad, and it's a weird thing about me, because I think it comes from my mom, is about, if you value money so much, you will lose your soul to life. You will not live your life. But you got to have money. You got to pay for shit, you know? And my mom was always about being responsible and paying for shit. My dad was about money. He was like, man, I got to make money. And he had 4 kids and a wife to support. And you're damn right. It's not optional. You got to make money. You got to work. You got to make money. And all the days of my life, my dad had an inferiority complex about himself, because he was a sharecropper's son from North Carolina. He didn't even finish high school. I think he might have got a GED in the military when he was in the military. He was in the military for like 22 or 25 years. But all the days of my dad's life, he thought he was stupid. He thought he was stupid. He wasn't stupid. He was one of the hardest working, smartest guys I knew. But he didn't have that college degree. You know, he didn't have that diploma. But it affected the way he treated people, because he could be jealous of them, you know? And he could be mean. I think that meanness comes right from his mother, my grandmother. I think that's exactly, because he was the spitting image of my grandmother. Literally, a carbon copy as a man. And he could be tough to deal with. But he was fair, you know. He could be brutal. But I always say, it's something I tell people, is when somebody's being hateful, and this is something about the internet that we live in now, is when people are hateful in the comments, they're saying more about themselves than anything they're saying about you. Because if you are not intimidated about somebody, or if you don't feel ugly about yourself, you won't put that forward in the world. If you are inferior, if you feel inferior about yourself, if you are hateful, there's something in you that does not like you, and the only way you can make yourself feel comfortable about that is make somebody else feel bad. And so that's what happens. Anyway, I watched this happen that day, and I never said a word to my dad about it, because after the situation with Al, I knew it wouldn't make a fuck bit of difference. I said, you know what? The two combination of events was kind of where I can't be around you, man. I just can't be around you. So I didn't live near him, and all of my brothers, all three of my brothers, would go to my dad for money, because he had a lot of money, because he worked his ass off. He had his own side in business. My mom had worked all those years at the hospital, saved up money. They saved up money for retirement. And this is the thing, this really kind of breaks my heart, because had it not been for the cigarettes, my mom would probably still be alive today. But let's flip this around too. Because of the cigarettes, my mom could deal with the immense stress that she was living under with my dad and 4 crazy kids, and one of them being a health damaged brat. So there's a flip side to everything, and I totally missed the point I was going to make about my dad. But anyway, hate. It's about hateful comments. Well, anyway, the thing about hateful comments on the internet is, when somebody posts a hateful comment on the internet, they're just saying something about themselves. They're not saying anything about you. And that's how you got to go about it, you know? Anyway, what did I want to say? It was something about, I didn't see my dad for 7 years. You know, I saw him when he was getting sick. And then one of my brothers came at me with a comment about Dottie, about we should get together and then we should, sue her to get part of the money. And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing any of that. She kept this guy alive for 14 years. What the fuck are you doing? I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. Oh, I was talking about my brothers getting money from my dad. And my oldest one would get money from my dad and buy cars from my dad for a real cheap price. My youngest one, who was fucked up because I came into the scene, and I feel bad about that. But my dad made sure that brother was financially dependent in some ways on him, so my dad could control his life. It gave him a sense of control over him. And when I met my, be careful how you say this. When I met my wife, her and I working together gave me the financial independence to never need money from my dad. And that gave us the freedom to be my own man and to be independent. But Dottie earned that money. She deserved every dollar of that money. And she's a wonderful lady. If you're out there, Dottie, I know you won't see this, but if you're out there, thank you for taking care of my dad for 14 years. My dad was not a perfect man, but he did the best that he could fucking do. He was an ex-master sergeant in the Army. I'm so proud of him. I just wish he didn't think he was stupid. Because he wasn't. Just because you're poor, just because you don't go to school, doesn't mean you're stupid. Okay? This whole thing that we have to ask somebody else for permission to feel good about ourselves is bullshit. It's bullshit. And when I see people out here on the street, I'm not looking for a qualification. I don't want to hear about no fucking college degree. I want to hear about a pleasant word to me, a pleasant soul to me. And that engenders my urge to help them in whatever they're going through. you know, and also respecting their privacy. You got to respect people's privacy, you know. So I don't know why I got all on this part of this video, but it's been a wild ride to get into 67 to 2025. 2025, it's almost over. 2025. Did you think you was going to live till 2025 and beyond? Because I'm aiming. I'm 65, and I'm aiming to go another 60 years. Yeah. 60 years? No, that'd be 125 years old. What did I say? 110? I forget what I said. I'll aim for 125. Fucking if I don't make it, you'll know. But that's what the fast is about, you know. The fast is about bringing days forward in your life. And we already have one of the most beneficial things about YouTube and the internet is that we have other sources of information for our food, for our nutrition, for our medical care. And this is a life-saving part of YouTube. It's a life-saving part of YouTube. And finding Dr. Jamnadez and finding Dr. Sten Ekberg on YouTube might have saved my life. Might have saved my life. Those two guys might have saved my life. And I thank them for that. Because I can tell you I watched my wife pass away over a course of about 10 years. And I knew that sodas were not healthy for her, but I never knew how not healthy for her they were. I never knew that potato chips fried in seed oils was not healthy for a person. And anyway, that was her favorite thing. All the years of her life was Pepsi, a Diet Pepsi, and Lay's potato chips. And she ate them pretty much until the end of her life. And the reason I let her eat them is because she wasn't my slave. She was my wife. And if she wants to eat some potato chips, a small bag of Lay's, and have a Coke, and that makes her happy, she's going to have them. Okay? She stopped smoking, I think it was like 5-6 years after we met. She was a heavy-duty smoker when I met her. And one morning she got up and I heard her coughing. She was coughing in the bathroom. This is something about smokers that all smokers should know. This is a danger sign. My mom had the same thing happen to her. If you ever wake up and you go in the bathroom, you stand in front of the mirror and you start coughing for no reason, and then your first impulse is to go get a smoke, and you take a smoke and you take your drags off that smoke and you stop coughing, that's a danger signal. You need to stop smoking right away. And that's what my wife did. I was never more proud of her. She stopped cold turkey. She didn't do nicotine gums or anything like that. She stopped cold turkey. And I was proud of her for that. But my wife was another person that she had the same mental profile as my dad. My wife did graduate high school, but she went right to work. She was working before she got out of high school. And she came from a very fucked up family. My wife came from a very fucked up family. My wife's father was a very severe alcoholic. And he did some pretty sick things in that family. I mean, sick things. And even to the point where my wife said to me about a year before she died, she says, "Phil, I don't know if my sister is my sister or if she's my mother." And my wife my wife was a wonderful storyteller about all kinds of stories, but one of the number one stories she told me was that her mother would always tell her the circumstances of how she was born, how she was raised and all this stuff. It was like they were trying to insert into her mind a story so she would never ask about certain things. And her daddy, when he didn't drink, he was one of the hardest working, wonderful people you ever met. But when he drank, he was a satanic son of a bitch. A satanic son of a bitch. So I would submit that there's no reason to feel joyful about drinking liquor, because that's what he drank, was liquor. And if you are an alcoholic, or if you are drinking and you are mistreating people, you need to stop. But my wife was a wonderful person too. We got together, we had our stormy times, but we never got into yelling matches. We never mistreated each other. I dated her for 7 years, and she asked me every week, "When are you going to marry me?" I said, "Soon, soon." And after 7 years, she said, "Fuck this," left me. And 2 weeks later, man, I went back and got that woman and married her, and we were together for 32 years, man. 32 years. And they were the best 32 years of my life, I will say. I got 60 years more to live. I'll have some fun, exciting times, and I'll see some wonderful people, and I'll probably get in another relationship too, and the woman will be wonderful. But that getting to 65 is because of everything I just told you, because of all the wonderful spirits that God brought to me. I didn't do that by myself. I fought all those years just to stop the self-destructive urges that was inside of me. And we've gotten to a point where we've got something left, you know? That's the thing, you know? I mean, I had car accidents, I had motorcycle accidents, I had bicycle accidents. I had people pull guns on me. I had got in a street fight one time. And I got into an argument with this guy one time because his girlfriend had blocked the road. His girlfriend was parked in the middle of the intersection. There's this intersection like this going into our neighborhood. She was parked in the middle of the road, and she was talking to a friend in the car next to her like this. And I went up. I had a little Volkswagen Beetle at the time, so I had enough space to do it. And I went up to her, and I just drove around her real fast. And she got all pissed off because she thought she had the road blocked, right? She went and got her... well, actually, that's another story. But let me finish that story. So she went and got her boyfriend, and she knew where I lived because she worked for maintenance for the apartment complex I lived in. And her boyfriend came up to me in the street. I was out in the front yard, and he came up to me giving me shit, and I said, "Look, your girlfriend blocked the road, son, so I don't want to hear your shit, you know." I didn't give her any crap. I just asked her not to park in the road, you know. What he didn't know was, pushed in the back of my pants, in my ass cheeks, between my ass cheeks, was a World War I bayonet that I had bought for, well, I think probably $15, $20. But it was brand new when I bought it. It was in the Cosmoline with the wrapper around it. It had never been sharpened. That sucker, it was made by the German company Solingen. I wish I still had that sucker, man. When I sharpened it, it was the sharpest blade I've ever had in my life. I sharpened it with a carbide cutter, but I had it back here, and I had my hand back here, you know. All the time I was talking to this guy, I am so glad that he walked away, because I would probably be still in jail. But I sold that World War I bayonet after that. I got looking at that, all the voices in my head got talking and saying, "Dude, we don't want to be in prison. Get rid of that motherfucker." I was like going, yeah, because I got this, you know, I got this kind of conference table in my head filled with people who talk to me. And you know, it's interesting. It's interesting to have a lot of different points of view, and they're always working on something for me, and I'm listening to most of them. Some of them we got to have in cages at the back of the room because they would just go crazy on people, you know. You can't go crazy on people if you want to stay free. You got to be rational. You got to make right decisions. You got to be in control of yourself. And that's where alcohol gets in the way. That's where drugs get in the way. And we had this social construct from the middle 60s to about the 80s where drugs were cool and where getting high was cool. We still have a lot of that on YouTube about getting high is cool. But we've seen a lot of rock musicians die. A lot of very talented, wonderful people die who should have never died. I mean, Amy Winehouse died from alcohol poisoning, and I think some drug use too, but she was a wonderful lady that didn't have anybody who gave a shit about her around her, and she killed herself. So I guess this video is almost coming to an end. I guess I've ran my mouth as much as I can run my mouth. I've told you a whole lot of shit that I really wasn't going to tell you. But the number one thing I would say is, thank you, God, for bringing to me the spirits that you brought to me to get me this far in my life, and who continue, the wonderful spirits who continue to get me through every day. You are an awesome God, and I want to thank you every day for that. Say hi to Wanda up in heaven. Say hi to everybody, my mom and dad and everybody up in heaven. And Shaban and Bernardo and Carlos and Edgar and everybody. Say hi to them. Please watch over us. Please watch over my little knucklehead cat Prissy, who's over here on the table with her eyes squeezed shut. In this home, this country, and this world. We're 8 billion souls here, and we have to get along. Okay? And you have to get along. You have to love yourself. Look in that mirror every day and say, you know what? I might be fucked up, but I'm okay with me. We're going to try to get through this. You're my best friend. Look in that mirror and say, you're my best friend. And we're going to do great things today, even if it's just holding the door open for somebody and throwing them a smile, or maybe saying a nice thing to somebody. That's something you did. That's something I did. You know? And we're going to make the world a better place, one little bit at a time. And if 8 billion people make the world a better place one little bit at a time, it's going to be an awesome world. So, God's with you, and He will watch over you. All you got to do is ask. And if it's Allah, Allah will watch over you. And if it's Buddha, I don't know what to say, but Buddha will guide you. And if you're an atheist and you believe in the numbers, you know what? You can treat people good too, and you always do. So, God bless you. Have a wonderful Saturday and a wonderful Sunday. We've got one more day to go in this fast. I probably am not going to do much today. And I got a yard to cut. It looks like freaking tumbleweeds blowing across the sucker now, you know. I was kind of hoping that the herd of deers would come back, because I had a herd of deers in the back of my yard about, God, I guess 8 months ago. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I pulled my vehicle around the backyard, the lights shine in the backyard, and here's like 14 deer at the back of my yard. I thought, where the hell did these come from? And I live in a neighborhood. But I backed out, I didn't disturb them, and I went in the house, I looked out the window. I tried to get my video camera, but by the time I got to the window to videotape them, they were gone. And I'll tell you one other thing too. We have geese here that fly over almost all year long. And when I look up in the sky and I see a V of 20, 30, 50 geese flying, and they're making that wonderful honk sound they make, I know in my heart that there's a God. Because only God would make that, you know. Only God would grace the skies with something so majestic and beautiful as Canadian geese, to fly thousands of miles one way and then fly thousands of miles another way. So enjoy the beauty that God brings into your life, because He brings it in there for you to enjoy. I've got big fat squirrels on my back picnic table that I feed about 2 or 3 times a week, and they make me laugh every time I see them up there. And there's other birds. There's blue jays and cardinals, and it's like a whole menagerie. One time I put a piece of pecan pie out there, and a daggone hawk flew down and took a whole slice of pecan pie. I couldn't believe it. I was like, look at this. So there is wonderment and joy and beauty in this world, and you just give yourself a break to go see it. If you got to turn the computer off, you got to turn this video off, do it. Go out there and see it. Go down to a lake and just watch the water go over the rocks. That's a magic. The science behind that. The difference in densities of molecules of the gravel, the life growing, the grass, the trees, the bushes, the difference in molecules that makes water that flows over these other molecules that are rock, and the kinetic energy of gravity pushing this all down the river. I mean, it's an amazing buffet of scientific beauty that God puts into our life. And I'm very appreciative of that. And the sun's shining out here. I think I'm going to turn this around and let you see this knucklehead when I close off this video. Let me turn this around. So there's a knucklehead. There's my knucklehead. She's sitting in the window. And the light's bad. Let me see if I can get some light on it. I got a little bit of light with it. We're just going to leave it like that. There, right there, is a little munchkin that God brought to me. And we got her for my wife. And she slept on my wife's chest as my wife got sick. And when my wife came back from the hospital, she couldn't move. She tried to get up on my wife's chest. I really couldn't let her do that because my wife was having trouble breathing. But she loved my wife every day that my wife was in her life. And so there we are. Just remember, you are a magnificent creation that God put down here. You are. Okay? And just remember that. And you're here to spread some joy. Okay? Spread some joy. It doesn't have to be something magnificent. It could be something simple. But do the simple things, and they add up to the big things. You folks have a wonderful Saturday and Sunday. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next video. God bless you.